in the name of Jesus. Lockdowns are over in the cities of New South Wales.
It's unclear what passage this pastor is preaching from, but it's not the public health order. His church, the Christ Embassy in Blacktown, is in lockdown. Hard lockdown. There was no QR code on the door, costing the organisation $5,000. Each of the 30 adult worshippers fined $1,000.
Whether it's a soccer match, whether it's a church service, it doesn't matter. You cannot gather as they did at Blacktown.
Oh, so you have to get vaccinated to have any of your freedoms, but even if you are vaccinated, you're not allowed to go to church. So what is the point of vaccination? Why did the federal government in Australia lock everybody down if there's no actual way to stop the lockdowns? And more to the point, why do they want open borders in Western Australia if closing the borders actually has kept the population safe? Well, they want open borders there for the same reason they want it here. In New South Wales, one official, the state's health officer, explained it out loud. Watch.
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the New World Order. Yes, it will be pubs and clubs and other things if we have a positive case there.
The New World Order. She said it out loud. This is a really interesting story, what's happening in Australia and what it means for the rest of the Anglosphere, very much including us. And maybe that's why globally most media organizations have refused to cover it. That comment, the one you just saw about the New World Order, got barely any coverage at all. In fact, all the footage we showed you today is mostly being ignored in the United States. Why? Because it's possible what's happening in Australia might be instructive to us in the United States. In just 2 years, the Australian police went from raiding newsrooms to beating people in the streets. So maybe the lesson is things can change very quickly. One moment, the English-speaking world is mocking China for being dystopian and autocratic. The next moment, they're aping China and hunting people down who are 2 blocks from their own homes.
Ka'al halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Akakwadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharala. This is Revelation chapter 13, verse 11, and it reads, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." Democracy and the spirit of it. This is exactly what American democracy looks like. Now, Tucker Carlson suggests draconian policies regarding today we'll call it the plague. Draconian policies regarding the plague are coming to the Americas. I would say for we so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, CV-19 or not, those same measures have already been here for a very, 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 very long time now. The fact that there is so much concern is because this time the color lines are blurred and Esau is now being held subject to the same unjust acts we have had to duck and dodge since Christopher Colombo showed up on Western shores. Let's go back to the scriptures. Let me get it again. Revelation 13 and 11. "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." The dragon written of here in Revelation 13 and 11 was and is the rule of the pagan Roman Empire through the power of the spiritual demon Satan and his physical counterpart here on earth. And of course, that is Esau, Edom. Now, the other rulership that came up out of the earth is modern day Rome, which we know is America, having 2 horns like a lamb. Lambs obviously being known for their peaceful and meek nature relative to American rulership, specifically its system of democracy and its stance on human rights, which is silent in its undertakings. Silent as in covert in regards to its true intentions. This is why America is quick to question the violation of human rights that persists amongst the other nations, China being the first that comes to mind. Only as of late are the other nations, including China, and you might as well throw the UN on the grill for that matter, calling America out on its hypocrisy, pretty much declaring if you are so worried about the blatant disregard for human rights, you need only look in your own backyard. Now, speaking as a dragon, it not only speaks to Edom's deceitful tongue and deceptive nature relative to his workings of witchcraft, the number one example being the trance most are in from the spells being casted by major Hollywood films and productions, and the celebrities used to channel these spirits with their glorified roles. Speaking as a dragon not only speaks to Edom's deceit and deception, it speaks to the draconian measures, meaning the harsh laws and one-sided sentences, as well as the stiff penalties he dishes out to enforce his rule over you Israelites. Now, horns represent rulers. The Romans had the plebeians and the patricians, the two-pronged system set up to divide the people from common consensus and appease those blind to the success the divide had in their being ruled. No different than American democracy. You gotta love it. Having the Republicans and the Democrats. The first place these groups go during campaigning for election periods is the evangelicals, i.e. the church. Can't remember a time the demon rats didn't make a beeline to the so-called black church, hat in hand, waiting to promise you the whole ocean until they get in office. And then when you complain of their broken campaign promises, they you know what they do? They spit in the glass that they were trying to give you. Proving the so-called white man's rulership is just a reincarnation of old rulerships. The further proof of that lies in the fact you pretty much have to be fluent in Latin and Greek to unlock certain keys in America. For example, the advancement of higher learning. You can't get a scholastic degree or become a doctor or lawyer in Slovakia, in layman's terms, without knowing what cui bono means or who Hippocrates is. Throughout the book of Revelation, as well as the 13th chapter, Satan is referred to as that old dragon, that old serpent. In the Greek, it is dracon, from the root word derkomai, meaning to see. In English, is properly seeing one. And what should instantly come to mind is the eye of providence, and really the eye on the pyramid on the back of the American dollar bill. For those of you in the know, those 13 truncated steps on a pyramid allude to the Tower of Babel, essentially speaking to Esau's ascent in his aspirations to become godlike. Now, the ancient Greeks classified a dragon as a type of serpent. A dragon was believed to have incredible insight, able to spot prey in any hiding place, and knowing when to strike. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 68, and it says this: "And the Lord, whose true name in the Hebrew, whenever you see Lord in all caps, is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahushai, whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Shall bring thee into Egypt with ships," meaning bondage, slavery, speaking to, first and foremost, the transatlantic slave trade. What else is the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill for? "And there ye shall be sold." Sold in the Hebrew, makar, literally meaning as merchandise, into slavery. Egypt in the Hebrew is Mizraim, properly Martezayim, which goes back to the root word tazawar, meaning to bind. Speaking of the new Egypt, America, the new bondage, bondsmen and bondswomen. Let me read you this excerpt from an article I believe I wrote an opinion piece on and submitted to my own webpage. It says this: "The enslavement of Africa, Not, and we know that doesn't mean literally the Africans. We know this is in reference to you so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indians, we Hebrew Israelites. People in the Americas, modern-day Egypt, New Babylon, by the nations and peoples of the Western Europe, speaking of you Edomites, Esau, Edom, with these several other nations as a supporting cast pursuant to Psalms 83, created the economic engine that funded modern capitalism. Therefore, it comes as no surprise that most of the major corporations that were founded by Western, European, and American merchants prior to roughly 100 years ago benefited directly from slavery. And that Salakia, that article is entitled 15 Major Corporations You Never Knew Profited from Slavery. Ergo, America became a superpower by way of cotton picking, tobacco, sugarcane, and essentially free labor. And no man shall buy you, meaning no man shall redeem you. You unconscious niggas talking about you ain't waiting for no Sky Daddy and Malcolm X was a savior and all this nonsense. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. As soon as Malcolm X started going hard on the idea that so-called blacks are the true children of Israel, that's when they came and got him up out of here. No Marcus, no Martin, no Malcolm, no Obama, none of them will be able to redeem meaning save you. Slavery, the black codes, broken treaties, the Trail of Tears, smallpox blankets, the KKK, Jim Crow, redlining, COINTELPRO, the assassination of any so-called black leader who spoke truth to power, the living conditions in the ghetto and so-called Indian reservations. Think about social services, removing the father from the home in the 60s and 70s, which helped facilitate the destruction of the so-called black nuclear family, followed by court and child support. And then there's the flooding of so-called minority neighborhoods with heroin, tobacco, and alcohol. The same tobacco they forced us years prior to pick. Malt liquor, abominable foods with poisonous preservatives, the crack epidemic. Think about the war on drugs, the 3 strikes rule, mass incarceration, stop and frisk, the prison industrial complex, mandatory minimum penalties, institutional racism. Think about all that and then tell me with a straight face that so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians haven't lived subject to draconian policies facilitated by westernized government rulership. But now that Esau is on the precipice of facing the same hellish and wicked conditions that we had to go through, that he had a hand in, now that white people in Australia is getting their ribs kicked in, and this most certainly is the fate that awaits so-called Anglo-Saxons of America and Great Britain, and everybody else that shows a blatant disregard for the fearful thing that is to fall into the hands of the Lord. Now that Yahweh is on the verge of going and doing what he promised he would do to those that spoiled his children, now Houston has a problem. Too bad for y'all. Deuteronomy 30:7 says this. Let's get verse 1 to 3 first. And it reads, "And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither Yahweh thy power hath driven thee." Speaking of Deuteronomy 28, and I believe this came out today when we were at camp. The first 15 verses are the blessings of those who do Yahweh's will. From 16 down are the curses who live life against it. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2. "And shalt return unto the Lord thy power, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul." Because Yahweh will put the laws in our inward parts, the new covenant that comes when the new kingdom comes and Yasharallah is made anew. Verse 3, "That then Yahweh thy power will turn thy captivity," meaning bring us out of this mental and physical enslavement by revealing the truth to the elect through his prophets, "and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations." Whither Yahweh thy power has scattered thee. And where was Israel scattered? In every nation all throughout the planet Earth. Now let's jump down to 7, which is the point. And the Lord Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Speaking to the enemies of Yasharallah, and particularly the nation of Esau Edom, receiving its recompense for spoiling us as a nation and as a people. That is what you are starting to see the effects of now. The curses in this time apply to Esau as well as the other nations. And that's just straight and to the point. So you know what? Let's close with this. This is Psalms chapter 91, verse 13, and it says this. And this is I was watching Elder Apostle Gabar's video earlier on Psalm 91, and when I got to this verse and thought about the lesson that I was putting together for today, this just, it just dawned upon me, it shined upon me, and I thought I should bring it out. This is Psalms chapter 91, verse 13, and it says this: Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. And this is twofold, as it speaks to the house of David being unhurt, protected from the Salakia animals of the wilderness, figuratively speaking to the trampling of the wicked elite, i.e. the beast Esau Edom, the deaf adder, if you will. What came to mind as I said, as I was putting the message together, was the lion and the dragon are the same animals depicted on the United Kingdom's coat of arms. The little horn that came out of that beast in Daniel, the 7th chapter, is America. So the young lion and dragon out of Britain then speaks to America, which is New Babylon and Esau Edom, and is pursuant to the serpent being bruised at the head under the feet of the anointed. Kwam Yasharallah, say circumspect. Stay prayed up, Israel. We are almost home. And with that, I'm going to say, Call Halal Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Shem Rakak Wadash. Through the power and spirit, I hope you were edified. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach this 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Remember, no test, no jabbity jab, and damn sure don't take that chip. Shalom.